Jill claims he asked her to sign a paper on the eve of her wedding, but refused for months to show her the full filming contract she unknowingly signed.
I feel like I was tricked into it.
Derek, you're a lawyer, and you referred to this contract as a fraud.
Yes, and I still believe that. I stand behind that. It was a contract that we wouldn't have agreed to based on the terms that were given.
Watching the way that my parents protected my brother, and it's still hard to swallow.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. It is Tuesday, September 12, 2023, and today is the day that Jill Duggar's book has been released, and this book will not disappoint. This book does not disappoint. For those of you that have been following along with the Duggar story and have been interested in the situation, this book will dive into great detail about her growing up, her struggles with leaving the show, and the massive, unwavering control that her father has, not only over his children that are minors, but his adult children. Details that are revealed are beyond what she has ever revealed publicly, including details about her birth with her second son, details about contracts that she briefly discussed in Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets, details about her relationship with Josh, how her parents handled Josh, and his involvement in the cleanup after the release of records back in 2015, and what happened after his conviction. She is very vulnerable in this book. I was impressed with the level of detail that she went into, because if you know anything about the Duggars, they have a hard time going off a script. And actually in the book, she speaks to the scripts that her dad developed after they became a filming family, is what they became, a filming family, a family where her dad began monetizing her life and her sister's lives and her brother's lives and didn't pay any of the children. Now, Jill and Derek's story is a little bit different, because Jill actually was able to write this book because she and Derek don't have an NDA. They don't have a contract with her father, and they're not locked down into some of the traps that her siblings have currently found themselves in. One of the more shocking details I found in this book has to do with Jim Bob and payment for the show, and how he managed the payment of the show, how he trapped his kids into lifetime contracts with him with lifetime NDAs, and how he used Jill's sisters and pit them against her and has weaponized his kids against her and told his children that they had to pick sides. There was no neutral. They were either with him or against him. And she talks in great detail about the pain of losing her siblings and knowing that anytime her dad has something that he's trying to do for damage control against anything that she says, she can count on a slew of posts and pressure from her siblings to try to distract, deflect, and make her change her mind. So let's dive into today's topic. Before we do, can you please do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, please subscribe to my channel if you have not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down below. Click on the bell so you can get notified of any time I go live or new content loads. And if you have something that you'd like to say, make sure to say it, and make sure to share this video with your friends. The book is 287 pages, and I wasn't expecting so much to be packed within those pages. We learned so much about her childhood, about growing up under the IBL umbrella of authority. We learn about her dad's control, her mom's love, and her mom's desire to have as many babies as possible, her mom teaching her about defrauding. She talks about Nike, y'all, Nike. But it's when she and her Derek receive a letter from the IRS, which outlines that they have been receiving payments, and Jim Bob's tax accountant had been telling the IRS that they had income that Jill and Derek never received, and that Jill and Derek were being taxed on the income as though they had received it. She ended up in a battle with her father to not only find out the truth about why he was telling her, why the IRS was sending her letters about payments and income she had, and why she had never been paid for the show. Before I give you the full before I tell you about this letter that he wrote, I want to give you a little bit of a backstory about how it gets to this point, because this book has so many layers. But when she's in El Salvador with Derek and they were doing their missions work, she and Derek come to this position where they want to get paid for the show. She has at this point revealed that Jim Bob had tricked her into signing a contract with TLC. She was being demanded to come back to Houston to do promotional work for the new series. And she was being told that she needed to leave El Salvador to meet her filming commitments that he intentionally withheld from her, contract details that he intentionally did not disclose to her. And in this, we learn that Derek and him have this very sort of tense conversation about getting paid. He doesn't decide to pay them, but later on, under some sort of strange aha moment, he makes this decision that he's suddenly going to pay all of the children a lump sum of $80,000. And as a part of getting that $80,000, the kids had to agree to sign a contract, literally a contract, for 7 years. But as a stipulation of the contract, the kids, the company Mad Family, his production company, would own the rights to the kids, their future children, any of their birth announcements, any of their wedding information, anything that happened in their lives, any videos or production that Mad Family entails, including and not limited to television shows or other video, which I'm assuming is their YouTube channels. And that as a part of this contract, that they would get paid a small fee, and then Jim Bob would get the rest of the money. So any revenue that they received, he would pay them a nominal fee, which in the contract stated it was non-negotiable. They couldn't ask about the fee. They couldn't talk to each other about what the other was getting paid. They couldn't negotiate an increase, and the fee was, they couldn't ask for raises. Like, it was just, this is what you're gonna get paid. You don't, no questions asked. And then the contract also included a lifetime NDA, meaning that he could not be attacked by any of his kids. None of the kids could talk about this contract. None of the kids could talk about this agreement. None of the kids could disparage the family, okay? On top of that, he says that he can extend this contract for as long as he wants, meaning that while it's for 7 years, he can enforce this for their lifetime, and he doesn't have to ask them the wiser. Like, the contract stipulated that he could extend it for as long as he wanted, and they didn't have a say in it. The contract was insane, and clearly Jill and Derek made the decision not to sign it, but her siblings did. Most of her siblings ended up signing this contract, and as a result of this contract, to this day, her siblings are locked into lifetime NDAs where they cannot disparage their dad, they cannot speak poorly about their family, and they also, to this day, have their dad gets the rights to any production that they make or do related to any birth announcements, any filming, anything that Mad Family Productions is involved in, he makes money on. So Joy's YouTube channel, Jess's YouTube channel, all of that is propaganda machine. Jim Bob likely is owning all of those details, getting the bulk of the revenue, and the kids are getting a small fraction of that. But he's using this as propaganda for himself. And because of this, the kids are stuck in these contracts and they can't speak out against their family. And he has made the kids believe that Jill is the problem and Jill is the reason why they're having all these problems. And he pit the kids against her and involved her in a legal dispute that escalated, which had one of her siblings showing up at her house telling her, point blank, Dad told us that it's you or him. But it reaches, so at this point you have to understand, Jill and Derek have not signed this contract. Jill and Derek don't have the NDA. All the rest of the siblings do. So that's why they never speak ill about their dad and they're always against Jill, okay? But it gets worse. In the 2019 timeframe, she gets a letter from the IRS and finds out that her dad has reported income to the IRS that he says she received, although she never received it. And she wants to know why the IRS is saying that she has made $130,000 when she never made that money. Well, it come to find out, and through her need to hire an attorney, like she got into this so deep that her dad would not give her any records, wouldn't tell her, why is the IRS sending me letters saying that I pay this amount of money? Why do I owe this amount of money? They want this, they want that. And he wouldn't give her any details about it. She wanted her contract. She wanted to find out what she had actually been tricked into signing. She has to end up hiring an attorney so that he will actually start responding to her demands for information about the show contracts, on top of, why is the IRS saying I made $130,000 when I don't have any money to show for? Now, this is where they ended up having to go to mediation because they want to get paid. She sends him a letter, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of other things about the mediation that I can talk to you guys about in a different video. But the mediation goes horribly wrong, which I ended up taking that video down because that video doesn't really describe what actually happens in that altercation, because it's literally only like a snapshot of the entire conversation between them. So it hit a boiling point when Derek was trying to get loans and grants and such for his law school, and he was unable to get anything because it said that his tax accountant had made it seem like they had been paid $132,000 by their dad. So they began pushing him to send them records and tell them, why does it seem like we owe and we're paid this money when we were never paid this money? So Jill and Derek were sent a letter by her dad that she shares in this book. And let me read it to you. It's ridiculous. Jill and Derek, we love you both and want to see our differences resolved. I've been praying and fasting about all of this, and I need to share my heart with you. I made some bad decisions along life's way and have hurt all of you, and I'm sorry about that. I was wrong for things I've said and done, and I pray you will please forgive me. It had a good start, she said, but it took a drastic turn. He went on to say, yes, we allotted at different times amounts to our children for tax purposes because each one of our children were benefiting from having all of their needs met: food, clothing, shelter, utilities, music lessons, education, travel, instruments, vehicles, phones, medical insurance, and medical bills. So the basic necessities of being a parent, he was allocating as income to the kids. What parent does that? And it was to reduce his tax liability. He said, here's some numbers of what was approximately spent on Jill in the last few years. Apartment rate rent, $750 times 24 months of $18,000. Utilities discounted at $600 times 36 equals $21,600. So when he was letting her live in those properties and not charging her rent for it, he was claiming that he did charge rent for her, and then he was claiming that as income for her. So it looked like he was being generous by allowing her to live in that house for free, but he reported that he was paying rent for her to live there. Midwife education classes, $5,000. Honda Pilot, $9,000. A harp, $15,000. Furniture, $5,000. If you don't want the furniture, we will buy it back after 4 years of use for $3,000. Cell phone, $50 times 120 months equals $6,000. Car insurance, $50 per month times 8 years equals $4,800. Vehicle fuel, $50 a month equals $4,800. Eating out, $100 a month with family debit card for 8 years, $9,600. In the book, you learn that he began giving them debit cards because the show was paying for things. And so they would get a card to go do things for the show to pay for, and then he could use that as reimbursement for the show and hand the receipts to the show. But what he actually did was he took those receipts and then charged the kids for using the debit cards. She was never told this would be income. She was just told to go use it for the show. Clothes and Goodwill, any family debit cards, $1,000 per year times 8 years, $8,000. Eating at home, $3 per day times 12 years, $13,000. He charged his daughter to eat at home and reported that as income. So for 12 years while she was on the show, and a child, mind you, he was charging her to eat. and then he was reporting that as income to the IRS. Gift to Dillard Family Ministries, $10,000. You paid yourself a salary from this stated. There was only $1,200 left when you closed it out, so you must have eventually received it. We can refund the ministry gift, and we'll still give it to you directly if you want us to. $129,940 is just the beginning of Jill's expenses paid by Duggar family over the last several years. Most of this was made and spent on Jill before the two of you were married. Also taking into account many other ways that we have spent money to help all of you, for example, installing AC in your home to El Salvador, the stove and the washing machine, etc. The total on Jill's tax returns was $130,250. We would be willing to write a check for $20,000 to settle this once and for all. Jill, when Mom and I pass on, you are sent to receive 1/19 of everything we own that is set up in a trust fund for you kids. If you attacked us, probably your inheritance will be lowered significantly. I love you, but I'm grieved by the disrespect and of accusations that continue. I've asked for forgiveness, and I hope you will also. You've deeply offended your mother and I. We love you and forgive you for the things that you have said and done. $20,000 is a one-time offer. Take it or leave it. Please let me know by Monday night or the amount will be zero. They were asking to get paid for the show. She refused to sign this $80,000 contract that all the other siblings signed. She later finds out that her dad has reported literally everything he's ever done to her for her as a child up until years before she was ever with Derek, and he's reporting that as income. Imagine your father making you think that he's doing things for you just to be a nice guy, and then later puts on your taxes to avoid his tax liability, to reduce his overall tax liability so that he doesn't have to pay taxes on it, and he puts you in a tax debt with the IRS because of it, charges you for being a father and taking care of you. Clearly, she was upset about this, and she did not agree to taking that $20,000. I don't blame her. So she ends up hiring an attorney at this point because she obviously thinks that what he's doing is illegal. And when she hired the lawyer, he went ballistic, okay? And she still wouldn't agree to take $20,000. She wouldn't agree to the $80,000. She wouldn't agree to any of it because she just wanted to know all the details of what the show made, what she, things that she contributed to the show and what it made for him. She learned ridiculous things about how much her birth made him, how much her wedding made him. But when he was unable to convince her, he pit her siblings against her. He said, then the next wave, a consolidated effort from several of my siblings. They hit the phone, sending voicemails and text all day long, each one pleading with us to get this resolved. When that didn't work, some of my siblings started visiting. They'd want to spend hours talking it through, trying to figure out what our problem was and why we weren't doing what Pops wanted. I felt obligated to be to at least hear them out and show them that we cared by listening. I could just about cope with the daytime visits, but when they wanted to stay up until midnight, talking with Derek and me when Derek was in when Derek had law school's exams the next day, we finally told them no. And then they would say, what? How come you don't want to talk? They'd say, this is way more important than law school. She figured out that in 2017, he had started paying them non-negotiable amounts per episode to those that were still filming, both spouses and siblings. And it seems if they had been brainwashed into thinking that they weren't owed anything and that the $80,000 payment had been super generous and that they should be nothing but grateful for all the gifts and good favors that was being given to them. There were strings attached, though, like having to pile on Derek and me when we caused trouble, but it seemed like nearly none of them were willing to question what Pops was doing. They were still so terrified of stirring up dissension among the brethren that they went along with almost everything. One day, she got a visit from one of her siblings who apparently was not happy about what Jim Bob was doing. And she said, Pops is telling everyone that if we don't stand against you both on this, then we're standing against him. He said, none of us can be neutral here and that this will affect all of us. And he says, we might all be sued as a result of what you're doing. So that $20,000 that he offered her again, he wanted her again sign an NDA, and she refused. She refused to sign an NDA. Jim Bob was so terrified about his secrets getting out that he was doing and taking obscene steps so that his kids could not speak ill about the family, could not speak about one another ill, and could not speak out against anything that he was doing that was wrong, because he was so obsessed with the money he was receiving from the show. So the kids to this day are still locked into NDAs. Her siblings have been poisoned against her by her dad, making them believe that Jill is the one at fault here. They never thought to question these ridiculous contracts. They probably have no idea what he's been doing to them on their taxes. Remember how he always moves the properties around and puts them in his kids' names? Guarantee none of them know about that. And now we've learned that he's doing this to defraud his taxes, allegedly. So I think it's pretty unconscionable here and disgusting to find out that what we have all suspected, that when something comes out about Jill that's negative against him, and guess what she also revealed? Jim Bob has it pinged on his Google account that anytime anything is reported about his family, whether good or bad, he gets a notification. And he almost always contacts people when bad press hits. And then he counters it with having his other kids do his dirty work by posting stuff in their YouTube channels, contacting her, making her feel bad, threatening her with emails, texts, calls. So when I told you that this was all deflection that they were doing, she's confirming it. They're posting things in direct retaliation of what she's doing, and they're brainwashed by their dad to believe that Jill's the problem, not him. And he made them feel that if they don't stand with him on this, that they're going to get sued and that their lives are going to be destroyed by it. P.S. He never sued Jill and Derek, and he did get paid $175,000 by their dad, but not at all even remotely close to the amount she made him. He made over $100,000 on her wedding alone. Her birth also paid him another 6 figures. She made zero money on the birth of her son, and he wouldn't even pay her deductible to the hospital. So, are you shocked to hear that Jim Bob has his kids locked into lifetime contracts? And are you also shocked to hear that he's pit the kids against Jill, and that because of her asking questions about her dad about, why am I getting letters from the IRS that you've paid me money that I don't know about? And she finds out that everything he ever did for her in her entire life, she's been charged for. And then he makes the kids contact her and harass her to sign another NDA and get $20,000. Are you shocked to hear this? We'll be diving more into this book. And if you haven't picked it up, make sure you do. You can check it out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and almost every major outlet that sells books. Counting the Cost by Jill Dillard. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.